packaging, the Decassier maple syrup tin design has become quite the beloved symbol in recent years. These days you can buy all sorts of merchandise of it, like this charming maple syrup can cushion I bought at the Bay. In fact, even this maple syrup can I've been waving around isn't even a real maple syrup can, it's just a candle, see? A lot of Canadians these days seem to enjoy turning these sort of boring objects of middle-class Canadian life into these sort of tongue-in-cheek patriotic symbols. I guess Canadians aren't the only people that do this, but I really like this kind of thing. I think it's because I just really like middle-class suburban life, and so I like the idea that that set gets to play a role in determining what our national symbols are, rather than just the government. And speaking of weird middle-class stuff, the other day a friend bought me a pair of these socks. This is a kind of higher end version of a very standard style of Canadian sock. I actually didn't realize this was a distinctive Canadian thing until I got these, but you can see it says so right here. This is a kind of old school sock that I think a lot of Canadians associate with wearing in like the winter or when you're going hiking or camping or outdoor stuff like that. They're very thick, so they provide good protection from the rain and snow, which is of course in ample abundance up here. But they're also kind of cheap socks made of this very stiff and scratchy wool. I mean, not these ones in particular. The original ones were made by a Quebec company called Duret in the 1930s, but these days there are a lot of knockoff versions as well. They're often called cabin socks or just red striped socks. Initially, when I learned that this style of sock was an iconic Canadian thing, I thought, oh boy, that must mean that sock monkeys are a Canadian thing too, because these are obviously the kind of socks that you use to make sock monkeys. But alas, I was wrong. Sock monkeys are actually made out of a completely different American style sock, known as the Rockford Red Heel sock. They're kind of similar, but you can see that the red bit is in a very different place. The Rockford socks also predate the Duret socks by a few years. So yes, as usual, this beloved Canadian artifact is just a cheap ripoff of a more popular American thing. Story of Canada right there. So now let us talk about this thing here, a mass-produced portrait of everybody's favorite queen, Elizabeth II. Now, I am not a big fan of royalty, and truth be told, neither are most Canadians, but Canada is under the realm of the British monarchy as a matter of law, and as a result, the person of the queen has often been treated as this kind of generic patriotic symbol. There is thus this tradition of hanging little pictures of the queen like this in important public places, like schools and libraries and city halls and post offices and community centers and places like that. The government produces them, and since the queen has been around for so long, they come in a vast array of styles, although we are generally not talking about candid photos, but rather these very stiff and formal portraits where she's looking as regal as possible. Interestingly enough, in some places they will have a picture of the queen's husband, Prince Philip, right beside. I've never really understood why they do this. Prince Philip is one of the lesser known members of the royal family in Canada, so it seems kind of weird to treat him as the queen's equal. I mean, as little power as the queen has, Prince Philip has even less. Overall, this is kind of an old-fashioned tradition that is sort of going the way of the dodo bird these days. Nowadays, when you see a picture of the queen hanging in some public place, it's usually a good sign that they haven't done much interior decorating in a few decades. Nevertheless, the government continues to make these things. If you really want your own, you can call 1-800-O-Canada and order one for yourself. I feel about 90% are probably ordered ironically these days. And lastly, let us talk about another mass-produced patriotic symbol, the plastic poppy with the pin through it. In November, all Canadians are supposed to pin them on their shirts like this. I talked about the poppy a little bit before in one of my previous videos. Basically, after the First World War, this American woman started selling fake poppies to fundraise for veterans. She was inspired by a famous wartime poem about poppies called In Flanders Fields, which was written by a Canadian. The ironic thing is that the poppy tradition wound up being a much bigger deal in Britain and Canada than the US. During the month of November, in the lead up to November 11th, the holiday known as Veterans Day or Remembrance Day, it is very common to see people selling poppies just like this one to raise money for veterans. And there is a lot of social pressure in Canada to wear one during this same period to show that you are pro-veteran. All the TV newscasters will wear them, along with all the politicians and basically anyone else in the public eye. The design of the Canadian poppy is very stylized, as you can see. In Britain and America, they try to make them look more natural, but ours are very geometric. When I was growing up, the middle part used to be green, but they changed it to black a few years ago to be more realistic. Canadians also like to complain about how primitive the technology is. It is literally just a plastic poppy with a single needle poking through it. A lot of accidental stabbings take place in Canada around Remembrance Day. This is quite gross, but I remember when I was a kid and they used to hand out poppies in school, A lot of the kids used to like try to see if they could poke the needle through the top layer of their skin without drawing blood. Kids are gross. So anyway, that is 5 fun Canadian objects for you. Longtime viewers will know that I'm really into cultural objects, which is why I have all this crazy junk behind me. And it's also why I love it when you guys send me cultural objects from where you live. In fact, let us look at some of that mail right now. So here I have a box from my friend Michaela, who is from Wales. Here are some fun things from Wales. I live in a small town in North Wales, UK, but I am originally from Chilliwack, BC. Over the last 2 years that I have lived in Wales, I have learned a lot about the culture, history, and geography here. Enclosed, you will find a few highly important items. So the first item is the Welsh flag with this iconic Welsh dragon on it. Perhaps one of the most iconic flags of the British Isles. And then we have this Mountain Breeze air freshener that looks like a sheep. My friend says, there are so many sheep in Wales, on every trail, in people's yards, in cemeteries, everywhere. I don't think I have ever been far enough away from sheep to not hear a baa in the distance. She also says that the Welsh are extremely proud of their mountains, even though by Canadian standards, those mountains are not that impressive. Oh boy, and then we've got some really fun things here. So we have these 2 delightful inflatable things. We have a giant inflatable leek and a giant inflatable daffodil. And my friend tells me that the leek and the daffodil are 2 of the most beloved national symbols of Wales. And you can see that it says Wales in Welsh on the side. These are really quite fantastic. I love this. And then we have a box of clotted cream toffees, which she says are not particularly Welsh, but are very British. Oh ho, and then check this out. This is really quite amazing. The last thing she sent me was a British poppy. Isn't that cool? Isn't that appropriate? This is very cool. I've actually never had a British poppy of my very own, but you can see the technology of it is very different. It looks more natural and authentic with the little leaf and the more natural shape. And instead of having a deadly pin, it just kind of has this little rubber stick at the back. So I guess, you know, it's difficult to put on a shirt if you don't have a hole for it. But if you're wearing like a sports jacket or something, I guess you can put it in your lapel quite easily. So that is very cool. This is a really interesting artifact to have now. So I can compare the Canadian poppy to the British poppy side by side, finally. Finally. So thank you so much, my friend. This is really some awesome, fun stuff from Wales. Let's do another parcel now. This one comes to me from my friend in Singapore. Hey JJ, my name is Sailendra. I've been watching your video for a long time and really appreciate the hard work and research you put into them. I hope you will enjoy the things that I have sent you, and I hope I can give you some insight into the culture of our tiny little island. So he has sent me some Singaporean money with a picture of the first president of Singapore on them. He's also sent me this cute little pin commemorating Singapore's Golden Jubilee. 50 years as a country, celebrated in 2015. You know, not all countries in this world have been around for a very long time. We also have some nice laminated flashcards of various important Singapore things. We have the old Singapore Supreme Court, the former Singaporean Parliament, and the oldest building in Singapore. Something called the traditional Peranakan Shop House, which is unique to the Straits settlements, Penang, Malacca, and Singapore, and the current president of Singapore, Halimah Yacob. In Singapore, we take racial harmony between Indians, Chinese, Malays, and Eurasians very seriously. In the past, we've only had one other Malay president, the guy on the bill, as opposed to several Indian, Chinese, and Eurasian presidents. Thus, the most recent election in 2017 was only open to Malay candidates to encourage diversity in our presidents. We also have this really cool little statue of the merlion, the national made-up animal of Singapore, as featured in a previous video I made about national animals of the world. And lastly, a traditional Singaporean wooden top. This is one of these really old-fashioned styles of top, where you wrap the string around the bottom, and then to make it spin, you pull the loose end until it, starts spinning. So this is really awesome. Thank you so much, Sai. Singapore is a very interesting country. I would very much like to go there someday. You guys continue to send me such really awesome stuff. I actually have a lot more mail to get to, but I don't want to make this video run too long. I will have to do another unboxing video very shortly. If you want to send me interesting cultural objects from your country, please drop me an email and I will give you my mailing address. I really love and appreciate all of the cool stuff that you folks send me because, like I said, this is what I'm the most into. Until then, I will see you all next week.